It started with his name, when he stopped being L and became Bennett. It was easier with these friends. They didn't tell him that they wouldn't call him by Bennett. They didn't tell him that it was too hard or that it didn't matter what his reasons were. They never told him that they would just call him L so it would be easier on them. Maybe he should have given his friends more credit. It was another 2 weeks of thinking before he decided he wasn't a she. A few days after that realization, he was out to his friends. They accepted him easily. They were even supportive of him. He didn't get to see them often. In fact, he spent a total of 1 hour seeing his friends in person. But that 1 hour gave him energy that he never had at home. Sometimes they slipped up, but so did he. Sometimes he responded to the old name, but he'd gotten better at correcting them if they ever messed up, and that they used his name more often enough that he was becoming familiar with it. His name was Bennett, not L. He was a boy. It was so simple, yet he found that he breathed so much easier now that he knew. Knowing who you are, understanding your identity, comes at a price. There's always something to give up when you gain something.
Bennett, you know nothing in this life is a guaranteed thing, right? What if one day you'll get what you want?
He knew deep down his friend was only trying to help him feel better. In fact, Bennett appreciated that they cared enough to try, but their words meant nothing to him. He'd heard it all before, but they couldn't take away from the fact that reality is different. He couldn't remember who said it, but the words stuck to him ever since he'd heard them. Love just isn't for everyone. It had been a good day. He wasn't being productive at all, but he felt at peace. Bennett's father asked him to go out and help paint some wood for the poles that would be used to support their growing fruit trees in the back. Bennett, basking in his contentment, agreed to leave a safe space. It was only paint after all. Nothing could go wrong. He slept out of bed and dashed outside to get started. It was uneventful, but he felt good. Productivity was good. He painted. He let his mind drift to when he was in theater class, to when he painted the sets with his friends to music he didn't know or remember, to when he wasn't useless or lazy or a deadweight. He let himself be content with where he was, let himself pretend that everything was okay and he wasn't hurting. He painted. His father started up a conversation, one Bennett idly engaged in.
Your mother spoke to me this morning.
His father sighed.
She's just worried about you.
Bennett hummed, but it was flat, a clear message of how he felt about the conversation.
Why don't you wait before you think about changing your body? You don't know if you're sure. You never had these kinds of thoughts when you were younger.
Bennett's lie shattered right before his very eyes. He did. But he wouldn't argue with them about it, because he remembered what happened when he expressed these feelings before he officially came out.
Does this mean you like girls? Is that why you're feeling like this?
He shook his head. This wasn't a conversation he wanted to stand through, but his father was pushing and Bennett didn't want to be stumbling backwards. I know what I want, he responded instead. I want to stop hating my body. They were both silent, so Bennett assumed his father was done with the conversation. Again, he painted, trying to sink himself into his earlier content. Once again, his lie shattered before he could even fix it.
Do you like girls, Elle?
Bennett tensed up, clenching his teeth at the nickname. He answered flatly, no. It hadn't been the first time he was asked such a question, and he was sure it wouldn't be the last. He thought of it in the past, but ultimately decided he wasn't attracted to them, although that was a conversation he never needed to have. His father, however, decided this was a conversation that was needed right this second, when they were painting.
Well, you can't just decide you want to be a boy and then not like girls.
The man said idly, as if that kind of logic made any sense at all.
There's some kind of correlation, isn't there?
Bennett felt something burning in his chest, something like anger or frustration. I didn't decide I was a boy, he started. I am one. Why can't I just be a boy who likes boys? He put his brush down when he realized the little layer of paint on it had dried out. Why can't I just be a gay boy? His father scoffed at the question, as if it was something so stupid that no one should be asking it.
Because no normal boy would want someone like you.
The words hit him so hard that he could have sworn something broke from them. His entire body froze while he tried to process what he'd been told. Then he stood abruptly. If his behavior was confusing to his father, it was never brought up. "I'm tired," Bennett muttered. "I'm gonna shower and take a nap." On his way into the house, Bennett slammed the door behind him. "Don't cry." He repeated it in his head until he reached his room, until he locked his door and buried himself under his covers. His father's words echoed in his head, warping into a voice that continued to put him down over and over.
Someone like you.
His father had said. Like Bennett was some special case that repelled anyone who had even entertained the idea of loving him.
No normal boy would want someone like you.
He pulled his phone from his pocket, intending to message his friends, but he stopped before he could open his messages. Did they really need to know? Did they want to know? Did they have a desire to listen to him? I shouldn't bother them, he told himself, as if saying it out loud would make his desire for comfort go away. Homework. Homework sounds good. Grades and shit. He should have done something else. Focusing was hard. Though he'd started almost an hour ago, he had gotten almost nothing done. He was staring at his paper, just thinking about the burn in his chest. It wasn't anger or frustration. Not really. It was longing. Bennett had a strain in his heart. There was an ache, a desperate yearning that haunted him every waking second. This strain would sometimes drive him to tears at 3 a.m. for absolutely no reason other than the small, pathetic thought, "I want to be held." It embarrassed him to admit, so he never said it out loud, but it nagged at him daily. It hurt. It hurt worse after his talk with his father. People like him were never given the time of day. It just wasn't how the world worked. Maybe in a film, or perhaps in a webcomic, he'd meet someone and he wouldn't be alone. This wasn't a film, though, nor was it a webcomic. So stop fantasizing, Bennett muttered bitterly, and focus. After a couple of minutes, he realized he didn't process anything that he was reading, so he slammed his assignment on his desk and got to his feet. The frustration from what happened earlier hadn't fully settled in yet. Bennett was still reeling from the blatant rejection he went through with his father and the conversation still weaved through the cracks in his sanity. His chest felt constricted, like someone was crushing his heart and hoping he'd just stop breathing. Bennett hoped he'd stop breathing. He was hungry, but he didn't want to leave his room. He was thirsty, but he could hear his father downstairs, so he remained locked up in his sanctuary.
No normal boy would want someone like you.
It hurt, he would admit. He'd known that from the moment he came out. After all, what normal gay man would want a freak like himself when they could have a normal man? Bennett wasn't a real man, not by any standards. He could go by any label he wanted, but it would never overpower the bitter truth. Bennett was a she, and he hated himself for it. I never asked for this, he thought to himself. I never wanted to be like this. He would lie to himself, just a little longer. He didn't need someone to love him back. He was fine the way he was. He was happy the way he was.
No normal boy.
Bennett picked up a pillow from his bed and screamed into it until his throat felt dry and cracked.
No normal boy.
You're a freak! If his own family couldn't love him, how could anyone else? It's fine, it doesn't hurt. It's fine, it doesn't hurt. It's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Bennett ignored his family's calls to dinner that night and chose to lock himself in his room instead. He didn't cry, or at least didn't remember crying. When his heart felt numb and his mind was blank, he finally fell asleep. Bennett wanted to cut his hair. It was too long, too many people mistook him for a girl, and it just made him look unnatural. He took a chance to ask his dad to take him somewhere, hoping maybe he would let him do something as simple as getting a haircut. Without hesitation, his dad said no.
You look beautiful with long hair,
he argued.
Why do you want to cut your hair?
There was no beauty in what was wrong. Bennett wasn't supposed to look like a girl. He wasn't supposed to have the body of one, But he did, and he hated that his dad knew, but still. Bennett barely restrained himself from letting his annoyance slip into his response. I don't like it. I don't like being a girl. There didn't need to be any other reason, but of course his dad knew exactly what he meant. His dad doubled down.
You're not allowed to cut your hair. I won't take you to get it cut.
And he knew his mother would never let it happen either, now that she knew. Bennett should have expected this, but he still felt the frustration suffocating him. It was stupid of him to think that his dad would let him. It was stupid of him to think that he would be allowed any sort of lenience to his own appearance, to his own body, when presenting himself in any way other than their daughter would obviously be harmful to everyone else. It was stupid of him to think he would be allowed to be himself in the house. Fine. To be quite honest, Bennett had expected his father to be the last person to reject him, the first being his mother, hence why he never wanted to come out to her, the second being his sister, and so on. He came out to his father first, and it seemed like a good thing. His father told him,
You're still my kid, and I love you.
Bennett was curled up at the time, sobbing his eyes out from the utter relief he felt. He'd heard horror stories of families that kicked out people like him simply because they just weren't normal. He thought it was okay, and he became complacent. He became stupid. I want to get rid of everything, he admitted to his friend. I just hate how foreign it is. His friend told him that it was okay, that everyone had different wants for their own bodies, and
It's totally fine that you don't want the same things I do, Bennett.
he felt relieved. He felt so calm, so happy.
Al.
His mother spoke that he flinched. Her voice was so quiet, so broken and defeated that he wasn't sure what to do. She heard it. She heard it. She heard him. Yeah? Please don't say anything. Please tell me you just misheard it. Please tell me you weren't in here just now.
Nothing.
Bennett ended the voice call and shut the door to his room once his mother left. He messaged his friend in panic. I think I just accidentally added myself to my mom.
Holy crap, dude! Are you gonna be okay?
I hope so. Figures she would have spoken to his father about it. She never not talked to his father. Of course she talked about it. Of course she did. Bennett wanted to know what she said, but he also knew he didn't need to hear it. His mother had always been predictable in regards to how she responded to things. Bennett never wanted her to know. It was too late now, of course. He tried to avoid her at all costs, but there were some things you just couldn't avoid when you lived with the person you were afraid of. It had been a couple of days and his mother hadn't mentioned that conversation at all. Bennett assumed he was safe, so he let himself relax again. Stupid. He cut his hair first. He went with a friend to do it and it made him happy. He felt so much better being able to express himself, knowing he had different ways he would style his hair. He felt better that he looked the way he wanted. His father, though he was upset that he'd gone behind his back, told him he looked beautiful anyway. His mother told him he would look better if he was thinner, told him it looked bad on a certain side, and overall just continued to criticize how he looked. While discouraged, Bennett tried to be positive. He still felt good. He still felt comfortable. Good things just aren't meant to last. He needed to print something and she happened to be near the printer when he went to go check on his papers.
Al.
She said in that same voice from the last time he heard her call him that. She beckoned to him, so he approached her, although he was cautious. She never hit him before, but she wasn't above violence.
Is it true that you want to change your body?
Bennett didn't want to answer her. He knew how she would react, and denying it would be lying. While not above lying, he knew she was going to bring up the conversation. Either way, she would have known the truth of the matter.
Why did you cut your hair, Al? Because you like it short, right? It's not because you think you're a boy.
Again, Bennett was absolutely silent. His mother began to cry. He didn't know what to do. His mother had cried before. He'd seen her cry many times and he confronted her through some of her tears. But those were times when she cried